Welcome back to Horror Recaps. In a few seconds, you're going to listen to a frightening tale narrated by me. Fear awaits you. Watch out and take care. The Eden family, consisting of Red, Evelyn and their son Cain, has just moved to a new town and are still in the process of settling down. At home, Evelyn constructs a wooden shelf and hangs it on a wall in the house. She carefully arranges some pieces of sculpture on the shelf. Then she receives a message from her spouse Red. Red has been working for the school, just to have their son Cain enrolled as one of the school's pupils. And according to the message Evelyn just received, Red is currently supervising some workers, so he asks Evelyn to come to the school and pick up Cain. Evelyn drives to the school, where she meets her spouse, and then the school principal, Ms. Raleigh. Once again, Evelyn expresses her appreciation to the principal for her kindness to her family. Ms. Raleigh assures Evelyn that their son is gradually getting used to the school, and she believes he'll eventually be a good fit here in the school. Evelyn leaves and finds Cain sitting alone in the school garden. She gives him a new toy she got for him, and soon they are seated in the car, ready to leave. While in the car, Cain reiterates his hatred and frustration at school. He complains that the teachers are mean, the kids don't like him, and he just keeps getting into trouble. Evelyn tells him that he's getting it all wrong, and that he's not hated in the school, just as he may be thinking. Cain insists he doesn't want to go to school here, but Evelyn tells him that pulling him out of the school is really not an option. She assures him, however, that she and Red are doing all they possibly can to give him the best. Later, Evelyn is at home speaking with her mother on the phone when the doorbell rings. She goes to check and finds Juria, a friend of hers who happens to be a seer. Juria warns Evelyn and tells her she needs to be careful, even though he's not really specific about what he means. Red then returns with Cain, who's feeling sad after he has been bullied in school by his classmates. Red exchanges greetings with Juria. Red then takes Evelyn aside and questions her about inviting Juria to the house for the third time. Evelyn says she wants him to bless their house now that they've finally moved in. After a brief discussion between Red and Evelyn, Evelyn politely asks Juria to leave the house and come back next week. Evelyn meets her husband in the bathroom and inquires about what happened to Cain in the classroom. Red explains that Cain hit one of his classmates, while the children were laughing at him, and now he's got a 3-day in-school suspension. Later, Evelyn and Red inform Cain that he's been forbidden from playing video games and watching movies and TV for at least the next 2 weeks, with the possibility of extending the period if he does not improve. However, Cain is excited when his parents inform him that they will be going for a hike in the woods the next day. In the morning, Cain dresses up, enters his parents' room and starts jumping excitedly on their bed while the parents are still in bed. In the woods, Red and Evelyn start to discuss their son's health condition. Later, Red shows Evelyn the new online store which he has just set up for her. He wishes he could do more, but Evelyn appreciates the gift nevertheless. They soon realize that Cain is out of sight. They go in search of him, and soon Evelyn finds him standing and staring at a strange door. The door doesn't quite lead into any building or room, it is just there, standing on its own, with a chain wrapped around it. Evelyn finds the key to the door, and even considers renovating and using the door in their new house. Red agrees to take the door back home with a truck. At home, the door is renovated and repainted red. They finally use it as the door to the closet in their house and it fits perfectly well into the new space. Cain's suspension is finally over, and Evelyn is getting ready to take him to school. She gets a jacket from the closet and after perceiving some bad smell in the closet, she asks Cain if he left some food in the pocket, and when Cain says no, Evelyn concludes the smell might be from the shoes. Later that day, after shopping at the grocery store, Evelyn pulls out her keys from her pocket and finds maggots all over the keys. She quickly drops the keys and takes off the jacket. Later at night, she complains to her husband about the experience, and Red promises to talk to Cain and see if he knows something about it. Eventually, Evelyn is frightened when she finds what she thinks is a ghostly figure standing in the house. But she turns on the light and figures out it is Cain. Cain says he's having bad dreams, and goes on to explain that in the dream he's walking through a house with many rooms and he's being followed by some kind of monster. Evelyn reassures him that there are no such things as monsters and asks him to think of happy things. In the end, Evelyn recites the Lord's Prayer, moving slowly away from the boy's room as he falls asleep. Meanwhile, there is a ghostly hand trying to reach out to her from the closet. As soon as Evelyn is out of the room, she shuts the closet door and returns to the bedroom. In the morning, Juria arrives at the house and tells her that their house is now unclean, afflicted by some evil spirits, hence the house is no longer safe. Juria tells Evelyn that the house has to be blessed, and during the blessing ritual, Juria notices the door and asks where the door was brought from. The room suddenly becomes darker as soon as he asks the question, but light returns soon enough. Before leaving, Juria tells Evelyn to remove the door from the house and burn it. He warns her to be careful with the things she brings into the house. At night, Red tries to pull the door out, but getting the door out seems a bit difficult now, so Red decides to leave the door for now and pull it out during the weekend. The next day, Evelyn visits the local library and tells the librarian she's looking for any reference material about supernatural kinds of stories or occurrences in the town. She asks for a recommendation, and the librarian mentions the haunted bridge, the spooky well and the stories of the vanishing children. Evelyn is more interested in the story of the vanishing children. She learns that the last of such mysterious disappearances occurred over 20 years ago, and none of the children who went missing were ever found. Later at night, Evelyn tells her husband about the story of the town's vanishing children, and Red replies by telling Evelyn that she's getting caught up in creepy stories, and Juria really isn't making things better. In the morning, Red discovers that the paint on the door has strangely peeled off, so he calls Evelyn to come and see for herself. While Evelyn is alone in the house, a ghostly figure keeps moving around the house. The ghostly figure enters the closet and closes the door. Evelyn hears the sound of the door, pulls the door open, but finds nothing. She then receives some texts from Red inviting her to the school. This time, Kane has been expelled from the school for engaging in an act of violence. While trying to figure out how to go about things, Red says he'll go to work with Kane the next day. And while Red is out of the house with Kane the next day, Evelyn goes through some of the papers about the missing children. She later leaves the house and arrives at the house of Mrs. Bradford, mother of Maggie Bradford, the last victim of the door. She tries to inquire about the old house that burned and the door that was left unburnt. Mrs. Bradford tells Evelyn that she made a very terrible mistake by taking the door. Meanwhile, Red has just dropped Kane off at their house and has instructed him to stay in the house and lock the door. Mrs. Bradford tells Evelyn that after her daughter went missing, she knew it had something to do with the old abandoned house which she had warned her daughter to stay away from. So she burnt down the house, and everything was ruined by the fire, except for the door. She buried the door 8 feet underground, but came back the following day and found the door standing right above the ground. And so what she finally did was wrap the door in chains, fasten the key in the lock and left it to rot. Since then no child in the town has gone missing in a mysterious way. While still at Mrs. Bradford's place, she gets a text from her husband letting her know that he has just dropped Kane at the house. Evelyn dashes out and heads back home. On getting back to the house, she tries to open the door, but it is locked. Red drives in at that moment, unlocks the door, but it is too late now. Kane has just become the next victim of the door, the first in over 2 decades. The couple grieve for the loss of their son, and the appropriate authorities are notified about the missing boy. Later Evelyn invites Juria. And when he arrives at the house, Juria tells Evelyn that it is not too late yet, and they may be able to make a bargain for Kane's return. But they have to act fast. He instructs them to get the door out of the house and take it to the place it was found in the woods. They will have to perform some rituals in the woods in order to bargain with the spirit that has taken their son Kane. After performing a number of rituals, Juria is finally able to speak with the gatekeeper, named Empusa. Juria requests for access to the demon which has taken Kane, but Empusa is at first unwilling to grant them access to her master, which Empusa describes as the Prince of Sorrows and Sufferings. Juria explains to Empusa that Kane's parents are willing to bargain with her master, and after much insistence by Juria, Empusa finally agrees to grant them access to her master and instructs Juria to place the key under the door. Juria places the key under the door, and the key immediately disappears, as if a hand has just pulled it in from the other side. Then for a moment, everything becomes totally dark before Juria lightens a lantern, and they see a group of ghost-like children standing right in front of them. The children disappear shortly afterwards, and the door opens. Juria, Evelyn and Red step in through the doorway. They start to negotiate with the demon that took their son. Evelyn and Red offer themselves to the demon, but he rejects them, saying that they are not children, and there is something special about the fear of children which he enjoys. Evelyn threatens that if he refuses to negotiate with them, then they'll remain here with their son Kane. But the demon calls that an empty threat. If they choose to stay here, he'll simply keep them separate from Kane, and they won't be able to bring their son any kind of comfort or consolation. Evelyn then apologizes for threatening the demon. The demon is however interested in a deal that can possibly amplify his power and produce wider results. The demon collects a pen from Juria and starts to write down his conditions. Juria tries to inquire from the parents how far they are willing to go, what price they are willing to pay in order to have their son back. What if the price of getting their son back would bring so much pain and misery to them? Evelyn says she's willing to do anything to get her son back safe. And so the couple finally signs the agreement, and Kane is released. Juria instructs Red to make sure they keep to the deal and do whatever they can to forget about the cost of the deal. He tells them he's leaving the town and suggests that they do the same. The family now plans to leave the town, just as Juria suggested. Evelyn leaves with Kane first, while Red stays behind for some days. In the absence of his wife and son, Red renovates the evil door and hangs it somewhere in Kane's former school. He hands the key to the school principal before finally leaving. The door is going to remain in the school, where more children can easily become its victims. And this is the price the Edens have to pay in exchange for their son's return. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.